Marketing That Works is the podcast for business owners who want to move their brand forward so that they can bring in more sales and clients. I'm Danielle Harris, and I'm bringing you what I know from more than 12 years of experience in traditional and online marketing. I have created marketing strategies for businesses of all sizes, from multi-million-dollar corporations to early-stage online businesses. Remember, some marketers chase fads. I believe in mastering the fundamentals. The world is in chaos, but your business still needs you to show up. You see what's happening and going on in the world, but also you need to keep the lights on and pay the bills. You want your business to make a difference, but in light of everything going on, you really wonder if sending that email or posting that reel is really what the world needs. This is precisely what I'm exploring in today's episode with my guest, Shirin Eskandani, a coach, a teacher, and the founder of Wholehearted Coaching, who's been navigating these waters for over a decade with helping entrepreneurs find their authentic voice. As the founder of Wholehearted Coaching and the Wholehearted Coaching certification, Shirin has been featured as a wellness expert on The Today Show, in the New York Times, and Shape, and Cosmopolitan magazine. She's navigated challenging global times in her business multiple times, and in this episode, we're diving into marketing and growing a business during difficult times. Not just how to push through or stay productive, but how to show up with purpose and make an impact and run your business in a way that reflects your values, even when it feels like the world is falling apart. If you've ever felt guilty for promoting your work during a crisis or wondered how to balance making money while making a difference, this is the conversation for you. Okay, so let's get into this interview with a longtime coach of mine, Shirin Eskandani. Okay, everyone, before we get into today's conversation, I just want to say that I have been such a fan of our guest today for such a long time. I have worked with Shirin for years at this point. She has been my coach, and I've had the privilege of being a certified life coach through her Wholehearted Coaching program. And it has just it's honestly so wonderful that I'm going to be able to share her with you all on this platform today. So, I know that I want to have you introduce yourself, but really, I want to start off in this way. One of the things that has been so core to like your coaching certification that you do and just everything that you do in general is having a decolonized approach to coaching and all that decolonization can do. So, can you explain to everyone here just to kind of give us a baseline of what does it mean to have a decolonized approach and how does that influence how you do business, how you market your business, and the work that you do?
Oh my gosh. Well, how much time do we have, Danielle? Because just even that we could talk about forever. But first, I want to say how privileged and honored I am to be here on your podcast, on your platform, speaking to your community. I I remember like the very first time we connected. And I'm just so grateful that we've had this long, long relationship with one another that's kind of changed and shifted through the years. And seeing your work blossom and bloom has just been so incredible because I think the work you're doing is so needed. So first, a huge thank you for having me.
Of course.
So I yes, I've been a coach now for close to 10 years, but I've been in the world of like wellness and self-growth for longer than that. So I would probably say if this is like 10 years of being in the business, maybe like, 14, 12 years of kind of getting into this world of wellness. And I remember for myself when I first discovered, podcasts and books that were all about, your mindset and mindfulness. It was such a huge aha moment for me. So, for context, I am a one and a half generation immigrant, which means that I was born somewhere else. I was born in Iran. My family immigrated to Canada when I was quite young, and I am a woman of color who grew up in a community where folks were predominantly white. And so much of who I am as a person is influenced by that. In that, growing up, I never felt like I belonged for many different reasons. And for me, that meant that I kind of had adopted this, perfectionism, overworking, overachieving, all of those things, which I'm sure many of the folks in your community can identify with.
Hmm.
And I think what's so insidious about those things is those, I call them character, they're symptoms. They're like what we do to kind of protect ourselves. They're not who we are. But what's so insidious about them is that they actually get us really far, and they do get us recognized, and they do help us feel like we're seen. And so I kind of lived the first chunk of my life really operating from a place of not feeling worthy, not feeling enough. And even though I was doing really wonderful, amazing things, I used to be an opera singer, which is a whole other thing. But I was doing it through this lens of, I'm not good enough. I have to prove myself. I have to prove my worth. And I would use these like perfectionism and overachieving and overworking to do that. And it kind of left me really empty and miserable. So I had this really great life from the outside, but on the inside, it felt really empty. And I knew something needed to shift. That's when I started to listen to podcasts and start reading these books, all about kind of growth and development. And my life started to really shift and change because of that. And also, in hindsight, I look back at so many of the spaces I found myself in, at so much of the content that I was consuming, and see that there was so much harm in those spaces and in what I was reading. There was, spiritual bypassing, there was cultural appropriation. There was a lot of kind of, if your life looks like this because of you, right? You're not doing the work enough, you're not thinking properly enough. And uh, I really kind of had to sift and sort through all of this stuff because there was real gold in there, right? Stuff that was really helping me, but also sift and sort through the stuff that really didn't feel okay to me. And so when I became a coach, I started working with a coach. That changed my life. I recognized when I realized I wanted to become a coach, I didn't want to do things in that way. I did never wanted to be the cause of someone's harm. I never, I mean, of course, that's our deepest intention. We can never guarantee that, right? But I wanted to be a space in which folks really felt like they could bring their full selves and also grow at the same time. And I always say that, like, my work, I feel like is like wellness for folks who give wellness the side eye, right? Which is like, I really like the stuff. I want to use the stuff. And also I see a lot of shady stuff happening, and I'm not sure if this is for me. And so that's the approach I've always taken, which is, this work is for us. And for many of us, it comes from our cultures. So it's really a reclamation of who we are. And at the same time, we can address, the fact that our lives are like this doesn't mean we're not thinking right. It may be because of systemic issues. It may be because of trauma. It may be because of a whole plethora of things, right? So how can we hold all of these things at the same time? So coming to this idea of decolonization, there's so many ways we can look at it. But to me, decolonization and decolonizing wellness, decolonizing coaching, decolonizing business, really is about you understanding, what are my beliefs, what are my thoughts, what is the vision of the world that I have, and what is not mine, right? What is not mine to hold on to? And so it is like this really, it's this untangling of your beliefs and thoughts of, like, especially when I think of business, right? Things like rest and boundaries, and not being perfect, which are so incredibly difficult not to do as you are a creative entrepreneur, right? You think that the I have to put out amazing material, which means it has to be perfect. I have to, I can't, not see a client on a Sunday because that's the only time that they have. How am I going to make that money? However, understanding that all of these things are so incredibly important to our survival, but also our thriving through our businesses, our thriving through our work. So that's like a very, that we can go deeper into everything I just said. But I think for me, decolonization is, as a coach, being able to honor all the intersections of the person that I'm working with, being able to bring into the space, lots of different ideas and modalities. And as a business person, it's really about honoring myself and honoring what allows me to make the impact that I want to make, because I think that's at the core of all of us who own businesses. We want to make an impact, but also I want to thrive alongside my business as well. So, how can I do both of those things at the same time?
Mm, you are right. Honestly, that
Yeah.
we could just like end everything right here. That's the end of it. Like that's a whole lesson. Uh, I know that just you touched on so many great things, and I'm trying to think about where I want to go. But I know one of the things in particular that you touched upon about like being able to serve and showing up for people and making sure that your business is your livelihood and all of those things. Something that I have heard from a lot of people in my community fairly recently, just with the state of the world as it is right now, they they have these businesses, whether they're coaching businesses, they're service providers, they run a business in some type of way. And yet at the same time, they see the sense of the world. And so they feel like they have to have some time to just decompress and or like they're in a state of shock. And so they're just like, I don't know how to move. Yet at the same time, they have a business. They have to show up. They need to market themselves. And I want to take from you, like, what is your thoughts on that of like honoring yourself as a whole person and, coming, like you just said before, but at the same time recognizing that like but I still have a business. So how do I do that? How do I balance that in a way that's supportive for me, but also is still not going to leave me broken and unable to actually like how do I care for myself when also realizing that my business is also part of how I care for myself?
Yes, my God, you phrased it perfectly, right? And I think that's something so many entrepreneurs are struggling with right now. Um, really deep feeling folks who are looking at what's happening in the world, in our own backyards, in your own homes, and really worried and scared and afraid. And I will be really honest too. I think right now, for a lot of us in the world of entrepreneurship and business, um, things are not awesome and great because the people we're wanting to work with are really scared and really worried. And when folks are scared and worried, they're afraid to invest in something. They're afraid to kind of take a big risk, which makes absolute sense. And so I feel like then this becomes the circle of, oh my gosh, like I just launched this thing. I didn't get as many numbers as I used to or I wanted to. And then we just end up spiraling. And we're also spiraling because of what's actually really happening. So there's so many ways we could talk about this. But I think one thing is, yes, we need to tend to ourselves and take care of ourselves, right? And so this is really nuanced because I would love to take the next 4 years off. That sounds great to me because this administration is totally making me so fearful that I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice to just have 4 years off. But obviously, I can't do that because of my work. And also, I don't want to take 4 years off because I know that my work is now needed more than ever. Like the work that I do and the people that I work with, this is the work that I know is going to help them and us really sustain and be able to thrive. So there's that. But I want everyone to really understand and hear that you have to take care of yourself first. And that doesn't have to be taking a huge chunk of time off. It could just be having a morning practice. It could just be going for a walk every day. It could just be not being on social media for, just a half hour less than you usually are every day. So having those a moment of really acknowledging you needing that time, and that may mean having to let clients know that you're canceling for the next week. That is okay. That is absolutely all right. And you can be candid and upfront with them about why. And you also don't have to either. The other thing I will say about this is that I have found in my experience, whenever I create something or market something from a place of scarcity and lack and fear and worry, it never turns out the way that I want it to.
Hmm.
Whether it is the actual product itself, it's the energy I'm bringing to the space, just the end result. And so that I think is one that we really need to kind of sit with. Like, yes, going into action, doing things is really, really important. We need to make money so that we can pour into ourselves and also pour into the things that mean a lot to us. And also doing the work that is necessary, whether that means working with a therapist or a coach or talking with your friends or having a community or whatever that may be for you, so that when you are offering things to folks, it isn't from a place of worry, fear. Oh my gosh, I need to have X amount of people because I don't get X amount of people, then this is totally not going to work and I'm totally not going to be okay. It's just that energy does not really does not equate to that kind of outcome that we're looking for on the other side. So I think those are some of the things that I really have been sitting with. And I also think in these times where it's really distressing, we do need to learn the art of the pivot, right? So maybe it isn't the high ticket offering that you were going to offer. Maybe at this time it's something that's a little bit more low ticket that folks can really like feel okay with investing in, shifting things, changing things. I've had to do that with my business. But I think meeting people where they're at and also meeting yourself where you're at, right? That intersection of I want to make money, I want to be working, I want to make an impact. And how is my community feeling right now? Are they able to really think about, wrap their minds and hearts around something like this? Or do they need something that's a little bit less time, right? Instead of the year-long offering, it's a 3-month or 6-month offering. So really getting creative. The more like I think entrepreneurs, we are just creative folks. Like I just think we're creatives. That's what we are at heart. So taking that time for yourself and thinking, okay, what is that intersection? What will allow me to feel like I'm actually doing the work I want to do and making the money that I need to make? And how can I be reaching out to folks with something that they actually need in this moment?
Mm. You said so many great things, and I think that the one thing that really comes to mind of showing up, like you said, when it feels like you just want to hide away, it reminds me of a conversation that I had with a friend, and she was just like, "How I feel weird showing up to sell the thing where people are thinking about like, how can I put food on the table for families?" And I think that what I told her is like, how is what you do really connected to really helping your people? And I think that most of the people within my community, and I know for sure in yours, are just like they want to be very giving and helpful for the people around them. And they don't want to feel like they are taking anything away that could be better directed to someplace better or of higher value. And everyone, of course, they have the ability to make their own choices. But I think that also at the same time, like, how is the work that you are doing actually going to be helpful for people? I know that for her, I said, how can you showing up for your business actually going to help them make more money to be able to provide? How is it going to make the people that you work with, if you are, say, a life coach, be better, more present in the relationships that they do have so that they can be more nurturing and be more there for them as opposed to closed off. I think that um, I think you have to think about it in that way as opposed to like I'm taking away from what it is that they're doing. And when you're really deeply rooted in that and very much connected and believe that, like I am adding to this value. And like you said, if you're able to think of other creative ways to still be able to offer and serve that, I think that that makes that hump of saying like, okay, yep, feels like the world is on fire. But I do believe that what I do can be helpful. Like to have an analogy, if the world's on fire, I believe that what I provide can be a hose or some water to help in those different times. And if you truly believe that, then it makes showing up easier. It makes showing up saying like, okay, when I do show up, when I have the energy and the ability and the capacity to do that, then it's going to be for good, for the overall
Yes.
good. If you think that what you're doing is taking away and that they're not going to get helpful advice or support or whatever it is, of course, you're not going to feel like showing up because you're just like, what's the point? Why would I
Yes.
do this? I'm not adding to anyone's life when everything else is already going down the drain. So I think, um, like you said before, it's like really grounding into those aspects. I think it's just so important for anyone um, deciding or feeling heavy about showing up.
And can I add something to that, Danielle? That's such a I love that you added that. And one of the tactics of supremacy, of capitalism, of patriarchy is disorienting you, is making you look the other way because you are trying to put food on the table and you're not looking towards your dreams and how you actually want to change the world. And so it keeps you preoccupied on all these little fires, to use that analogy that you're putting out, that it takes your heart and energy away from the things that are actually going to change your life and change our collective life. So our work is needed more than ever now. And what's actually happening around us is very, very strategic, right? And the way that they have us looking here and looking there and worried, and so much of it is actually real worry. And also, we need to also keep our eyes on our dreams, our hearts, what's most important to us, because that's actually what's going to change this, right? That's actually what's going to change what is happening now. We do not need more, um, white men running the show. We do not need more of that. We need more women, folks of color. We need more trans folks. We need more queer folks. These are the people that need to be like really focusing on their dreams. So absolutely, I love how you said that. Like you need to be rooted in as an entrepreneur of the change that you are facilitating for your client. You need to know your why. That's something we do at the very beginning of a certification, Danielle, which I feel like everyone's like, oh, I don't know about this, but I'm like, no, it's the most important thing because, you know, life will take you away from the reason why you built your business, besides the fact you want to make money and have fun and travel the world and all those things. But your why is usually related to the folks that you're serving and the transformation that you're facilitating. Focus on that more than ever.
No, I agree. And as someone who would admittedly overlook and gloss over that and just be like, oh, okay, yep, that sounds like a just like nice generic, like, why are you here? Like type of thing. I realized that the people that have gone the furthest and were able to persevere more so than anyone else were the people that were deeply rooted into that. And if you decide to skip that, then you can't go for it. Go and do and run your business and live your life however you want. But what tends to happen is at some point you will be redirected to go back there. Something will happen, a roadblock will happen. You'll lose faith in what it is that you're doing. You'll start doubting and not believing that the thing that you want to do is worthwhile, and you will end up coming back to that and needing to do that work. So one way or another, you will end up needing to do that. It's just a matter of, do you want to start off your journey with doing that, or do you want to come back around to that in the beginning and realize like, oh yeah, they were right. I probably actually should have done that. And that's not to say that the people who are rooted into their why don't lose track or anything. It's more of that it's a reminder of it, and that helps them to get focused and reoriented so much better and faster than the person who never spent any time doing that. So please, please, please do that work. I say that as someone who has experience of just like glossing over that part because I'm just like, that can't be that big of a deal. And it is.
It
It
is. It
truly
is.
is.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
truly
Yes.
is.
Yes. Yes.
So one of the things that I know for a lot of people, no, this might be one of the first times, early times that they've experienced this type of world-shaking reality is not going the way that they had envisioned type experience for them as a business owner in particular. And you said that you've been doing this for a while now at this point. And I think that there are a lot of people who started their businesses maybe like starting off in like 2021 or so. So it was like the pandemic had happened by that point. They were kind of like settled into that. But there's now coming into this time of just like, oh, there are a lot of things that are going on happening. Like, how do I navigate that? And as someone who has shown up and publicly talked about like, hey, this is how I'm navigating during this time. This is how I'm navigating during unrest. This is how I'm navigating through a myriad of different things. What is your approach? Can you talk a little bit about your experience in showing up during difficult times? Um, yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's different for everyone. And I think one of the big things we have to name is like safety and security. And I'm very privileged in that I have that, especially with my community. I think for me, the two things that have really been important during these times are transparency and vulnerability. And I think sometimes as business owners, those two things are scary because we think if I'm actually honest with how I'm feeling or what my thoughts are and my beliefs are on what's happening, I'm going to lose work. I'm going to lose followers. I'm going to lose my community. People are not going to think I'm an expert at what I do. I'm not good at what I do, right? Because I'm struggling. And maybe that's what you're offering folks is like you offer hope or you offer help. And you think, I can't. And what I have found through all these years of doing this work, like close to 10 years, is the more transparent, the more vocal, the more vulnerable I am about my experiences and what I'm going through, the more community I have, created and the more work I've gotten. And I also think it's really important to say that the community is a curated community, right? It's a community that does agree with what I'm feeling and how I'm believing. And I think the thing is if we try to be for everyone, then we're kind of for no one. And also in the work that I do as a coach, what I found is at the beginning, I used to get all sorts of different types of clients. And some of them I would really love working with. And some of them I was like, oh, this isn't really a fit. I haven't had that issue, I would say, for like, the past 6 years, because I think I'm so clear about my values and who I am that folks know what I'm about. So it's like when they start working with me, they know that have certain feelings about certain things happening in the world. They know that I have gone through X, Y, and Z. And so I would really encourage folks to, and again, I talk about safety and security. Like if it doesn't feel safe, of course we don't share it. But if you do feel safe and it's just more a fear of, oh my gosh, people are going to see me and they're not going to want to work with me, I'm telling you, the more honest you are, the more transparent you are, the more there's just an exponential growth from that. It's really incredible. And this is something I heard Glennon Doyle say, which is speak from the wound, not from, oh no, speak from the scar, not from the wound. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking, right, it's something that we have had time to process. We have had time to reflect on. It's not right. It's something that just happened and we're kind of projecting our own stuff into the world. It's like, no, this is what I've experienced. This is what I've gone through. And this is what I've learned on the other side. And I've always found like through my newsletter, my podcast, my Instagram posts, like everything is usually led by a story about me. I've done this because I want you to know that I'm not exempt from all of this. So I would just say lead with your values, lead with your heart, lead with vulnerability and honesty and transparency. And I promise you that so much amazingness is going to come from that.
Mm. Can you give us an example of like one of the times that sticks out for you where you were like in particular, just like, whew, I don't know if I'm ready to share and talk about this, but like the response that you got as a result of that was just overwhelming and it really helped and shaped you.
Yeah. So when I first started my business, I have an Instagram and my Instagram was like fine. It was like you've looked at any other coaches, it was like that. It was a lot of other people's quotes. It was, nice images of me, just like inspirational stuff, live, laugh, love, not live, laugh, love, but like, kind of aligned with that. And then one day I had written this post that was about kind of what we talked about earlier, the toxicity and harm that I experienced in the world of wellness. And this was, close to like this was 8 years ago or something when people weren't really talking about that. Like no one was really naming that. And I wrote this post and I published it. I was like, I'm going to publish this. And I pressed publish and I like threw my phone across the room. Like I was like, I'm not going to look at what the response is going to be because I'm so terrified. And that post started the trajectory of what I believe really, really, really created wholehearted coaching. I had such an incredible positive response to it. I started people who started to like join my Instagram who were like, folks that like, yeah, they were just like, they found me because my post had been shared so many times. And I started to get DMs from other coaches and other folks. And I made like amazing colleagues that way. And one of my closest friends now is because of that post. so that I remember was like so scary to me for me to name something in this industry that I'm in that I think is not okay, because not a lot of people were naming that. And who was I to name it, right? Like a little old me with like maybe 1,500 followers, probably 200 of those were like, family, friends, and bots or something. I don't know. But, I just learned so much from that moment where it's like the more and more I lead with my voice, the more and more this grows in a way that feels good to me, that feels really good to me. And so since then I've just continued to post stuff, and I've found that overwhelmingly the response is positive, and the folks who don't align with it, that's okay, they should leave, because this is not the space for them. So that was like the very first example of that, and it was terrifying and scary and so worth it.
Mm. Yeah, I can see a lot of people. There are a lot of times that people say, talk about your voice and your opinions and things like that. And on one hand, I see people thinking like, I don't have anything that's like really like that controversial or anything like that. But the times when they do have like this little thought of just like, I don't like this, or this isn't good, or this isn't right, but they don't express that in any type of way. And it just kind of starts off as like a little like nagging, bugging voice. Was that kind of similar to like how you experienced it? And then like it came out and about, like how did you start from that? Like, yeah, this is the thing that I see and experience to like, no, like this is something that I should really start and share, and I should not let this just kind of like stay as like a ruminating little thought.
Yeah, I think, it's like I think sometimes we're afraid that if we name the thing that we don't like within our industry or within what we're seeing in the world, um there's like going to be all this negative response that we're being contrarian or that we're being a hater. But I think it really comes down to like, what are your values? And for me, it was really clear. I mean, I'd created Wholehearted Coaching because I wanted it to be a space for folks who didn't feel welcome in the world of wellness. And I had to be clear about that, right? Like, I think that that was really important. If I had this page that was like all of these quotes and these things that were inspiring, but I wasn't really naming the thing that was at my heart. And so, yes, it was kind of this like nagging thing. Like, I'd written the post, but I kept like being like, no, 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 I shouldn't post it. This is like, this isn't like, I'm going to get all this negative feedback. People are going to leave my page. This is actually going to like affect my business adversely. So it was like this thing that was kind of on my heart and on my mind all of the time. And I had to say something. And I think some of us think like, who am I to say something? Like, does this make a difference? Yes, it does. It's the Marianne Williamson quote, which I cannot remember. But it's like, yes, we do need you to say this in your corner of the internet. I don't care if you only have 2 followers or you have 2 million followers. We all owe it to one another to be honest and to support each other. And I think it's so incredibly important. I want to know who you are and what you're about. But then at the same time, I say this too, like this is conversations we have within the coaching certification with the students, which is, well, I want to make money. And I know some of my thoughts will go against the folks that actually will be paying me a whole lot of money. And so sometimes we don't need to be super vocal. Like, let's say, for instance, you're a coach who works with a lot of corporate clients. And if they found out your political affiliations, perhaps they wouldn't hire you. Um, we don't all need to be vocal online, right? Our activism and who we are does not need to be on display to mean that we're actually doing things. And so for those coaches, maybe it's that they work with those corporate clients and charge them a whole lot of money. And then they can work with sliding scale customers, because they have that money from those big corporate clients, right? So there's so many ways that we can live out our values and our beliefs in our work. Again, it's about being creative, but I think at the heart of it, your reflection, I'm sorry, your business for me should be a reflection of who you are and what you believe in. Because that's when I think it feels really, really good. Right. And so, again, like I said before, get creative. What do you believe in? And how can you really allow your values to lead the way?
Mm. You pivoted really nicely into something else I wanted to talk about, of just like knowing in your business like when and how to speak up. And I think that a lot of times, not only like during times right now, but even in the past where there are just things that are happening in the world, whether it's politically, something else happened in the world, and people feel like, well, I have to say something. And then there's this pressure to say something. And then you see other people doing something like, oh, should I? Like, then, but then are people judging me if I don't say anything? And I think that that's just is a lot. And I also think that there are times where people are just like, well, I say that I'm an ally, I'm saying I'm a supporter of this, but then also I'm not doing this thing publicly. And so, what do you say to the people who are having this back and forth conversation, with themselves of just like you said, like they're on one hand for the corporate type, but if you are making this as part of your brand, what do you say to those people that are just like, I say that I'm about this, but like I don't know if I should speak up or say something along these issues. Like, what is your thought? What's your advice to those people struggling with that type of situation?
I think, you know, again, like I said, it's super nuanced. And I think if it's again safety and security, like if it's not going to be safe and you're not going to have security for you to speak out, then again, our beliefs and our activism and our values can be displayed in so many different ways. And I also think that for those of us who do speak out, like I hope that the fact that I do speak on topics that are important to me, I do name things that I think need to be named. I hope it inspires maybe one other person to share something. And maybe it's not share something on social media, but it's to share something with their family member or to have a tough conversation with a friend, right? This doesn't like, again, I think so many of us who have businesses think we have to be these big booming voices. For some of us, I feel like I have a responsibility to, and I have the privilege to be able to, but I know that's not the case for everyone. And so I would say release the shame and figure out how you can do that in your own way. It doesn't have to be, big and bold on your Instagram page or on your website, but there should be something happening. I think that's just a responsibility we owe to each other. And again, it can just be a conversation with someone in your close circle. It can be something so small. It can be a donation. It can whatever it is. So I would say that. And um, for me, a guiding question is at the end of my life, when I look back on it, how do I want to feel about the person that I was? And so I think how was I a good ancestor? That's what Leila Saad always says, right? What am I, in a lot of indigenous communities, they have this idea of the seven generations, which is when you make a decision, you are not just thinking about yourself and your own generation, but the seven generations that either come after you or the seven generations that exist within your kind of family circle, which is like the three before you and the three after you, right? So your great grandparents, your parents, and then your children, your whatever the future is, right? So the decisions you make thinking about it in the context of that. So again, I think this is a question that we all have to sit with ourselves and see what feels safe and secure, but also these are really terrible times. And I don't want to look back on these times and think to myself, I didn't do anything. Or I, didn't challenge myself to get myself a little uncomfortable or a whole lot uncomfortable, whatever that may be. So again, I think this is a very personal thing to sit with. Um, but that's how I navigate these moments.
Mm, I think that's very helpful. I like to think that there are times where people look back at historical events and they're just like, oh, I would have done da 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 da. Today, in the present, you're living in a historical event at all times, but like in particular today. So, what would you want grandkids are saying like, oh, they participated in this as like a source of pride, or other people look back and it's like, oh, I want to do something similar to them, and it doesn't necessarily have to be no big and bold and flashy, but it could be unsung hero of just like grassroots of, oh yeah, they always donated this, they always spoke up, they changed minds one person at a time. um, but I think really very much so. Thinking this from a business aspect, like it could be something as quite as simple as, you know what, like maybe I don't say something big and loud and bold, but a percentage of proceeds of the money that I make from this goes towards this cause that I believe in. And that could be your way of going about doing things, whether it's like a quarterly donation that you make, whether it's, thousands of dollars, or you're just like, I've got $30 that I can give towards that in the name of my business. I think that during times where you feel like you don't have any control, I think the biggest thing that you can do and realize is that you do have some control and agency of things. And I think that's the biggest misconception that people have. There is this feeling of hopelessness that they can't do anything, but the sooner and the quicker you realize that you actually do, and in your business in particular, that it can make a difference. I think that's the biggest thing that anybody could do for themselves and for the businesses, to see that what I'm doing here is making a difference, not only in the life of the people that are paying me, but my business as a whole can be an influence of change. And it doesn't have to be, like Ben and Jerry style, like always posting like a mic drop type of social justice action, but it can be a fun thing so that other people can create those moments. And that's just as valid.
Yes, Emily Ann Brandt, who does a lot of work around decolonizing business and particularly coaching businesses. Um, she has this workshop. She does the workshop in our certification, big plug there. But she talks about how you as a business owner are actually a policymaker, right? In how you run your business, that is your policy, right? So when we think of policymakers, we think of politicians and we think, oh, well, I can't change. Yes, you can. Within your own business, you can create policies, you can create boundaries, structures, systems that are really nourishing, that are really good, right? So, for instance, for me, a portion of all the money I make goes towards different organizations that I believe in. I predominantly work with women of color in my business. I compensate the people I work with very well. All of these things. This is my little microcosm. This is my system in which people thrive. And so if all of us do that, right, that's incredible, right? Imagine the ripple effect of that. So do not underestimate your own power within your own business, that power of change and the power of transformation. So yeah, just you are very powerful within your own business.
Mm. I This has been such a great conversation. I think that it's more from like this hopelessness and the world's on fire to more of this, like, you have power and agency. And I love that that's the direction that we took this, because that's true. And I think that's what's going to help people stay present in their businesses, to be reminded of why they're doing this. And then when that is clear, then you're going to show up that way. You're going to show up more confidently, and you're going to be able to attract people who are just like, yes, that's the change that I want. And I also want to say, for as much as there are a lot of things that are going on and it's just like it's on fire, there are also segments where it's just for whatever reason, one thing or another, you're just like, yeah, like I still have resources to do things. So I think there's also a misconception of like everybody's broke, nobody can do anything. And that's not a true reality for everybody. Um, and I don't say this from like go get your money, but like also like as primarily women of color, like go get your money. But at the same time, just realizing that like you can still show up. There are people that still need and want your help, and you can do that in a way that's going to be very supportive, not only for you and your business, but for the people that you are looking to serve. So I don't want people to be in this mindset of thinking that like everything's bad, everything is terrible, no one's doing good, no one's making, because that in and of itself is not entirely true. But it might be true that you need to take a look at how it is that you want to go about doing that, so that it's in the best alignment for you, is in the best alignment for what your people need, and what's actually going to get them the results that they want. So I think that, looking at it that way can give you a much more hopeful outlook than like it sucks, it's terrible, give it up. Like I might as well just like try to work for Amazon or, or
No, not
whatever at this.
Amazon. Not Amazon.
I mean,
No, I get it.
but because if anybody's gonna make something, it's gonna be Mr. Bezos. Um, so as we wrap up here, I would love for you to share just like if there's a practice that you want anybody leaving from this conversation to have, like you want them to really like tap into, like what would that thing be as they consider coming out of and being focused on what it is they want to do and how they want to serve people? What's one practice that you think would be very impactful for them?
Ooh, I don't know if I have one, but I think it's a couple of the things that we've talked about today. I think one, really get clear on your why, right? Why you are doing the work you are doing, like that deep soul-filled why, not just like and the why could be financially related, but it needs to like set your heart on fire. Like this is getting you going in a really beautiful way, but deeply connecting to your why. The second thing, which Danielle, you hit on again, which is like get creative, right? So maybe the offering that you wanted to offer this year is not really resonating with your community. Get creative. People want your work. How can you offer it in a way that, again, really meets your people where they're at as well and allows you to do the work that you want to do? And I think the other thing is imagining, right? This comes from Les Alfred, who has the Balanced Black Girl podcast. She's a friend and colleague, and also a former client of mine. But she has this practice called the best case scenario. So she does a journal practice where instead of writing the worst case scenario, she writes down the best case scenario. Now, this isn't being a Pollyanna, right? This isn't us negating how tough things are, but our minds can come up with 100 worst case scenarios. They can also come up with 100 best case scenarios. It doesn't mean that either one is going to happen, but when we're in the space of a best case scenario, we're open, we're more creative, we can tap into our imagination, we can bounce back better, we're resilient. But when we're in that worst case scenario space, things are really tough and challenging for us to kind of get out of, right? And we are in tough and challenging times. And we need to be in a space of, I can figure this out. I know I can figure this out. So that's another practice that I've been leaning into. I've been really enjoying. Yeah.
Hmm. As we end off for today, what's giving you hope right now?
Oh my gosh. What's giving me hope? What's giving me hope is, well, I just had a baby. So my baby's giving me hope. She's a really good wife. She's 7 months old. She's the cutest thing ever. But also, what's giving me hope is the way that I'm seeing people really right now especially show up for each other on a grassroots level, like, right, whether it's volunteering for folks, whether it's donating clothes to migrants, whether it is whatever it could be. But that's offering me a lot of hope. I think folks are realizing right now that the bigger systems that be aren't really here to help us. We need to help each other. And I'm seeing a lot of really beautiful examples of folks showing up for each other, helping each other, inspiring one another, supporting one another in whatever way they can. So that's giving me lots of hope.
Mm, thank you so much, Ren, for sharing all of this. Everyone, absolutely go and follow Shirin in all the places. Shirin, tell us a little bit more about the coaching certification. I know I mentioned at the top that I am a graduate of the program, and then you mentioned all of the fantastic people who have contributed and are in that program. But tell us a little bit more about that, what it's all about and how people can be better connected with you.
Yes. So the Wholehearted Coaching Certification, you can go to wholeheartedcertification.com to find out more. We're also on Instagram at Wholehearted Certification. I created that out of my deep love for coaching and knowing what this modality can be and should be. Seeing a lot of harm and toxicity, seeing a lot of people who are amazing coaches not call themselves coaches because they don't want to be associated with all of the negative, stuff that's happening in the coaching world, and realizing things need to change from the foundation, right? Really knowing, understanding that a lot of the certifications out there really aren't setting us up for success as coaches, wanting to work with diverse communities, wanting to work within times that are so incredibly challenging. And so I created this certification as a really my love letter for what coaching is and has always been. So it's a 6 month program. Danielle is one of the graduates. It's also a space in which, it's been created by women of color. Most of the teachers are folks of color. We have trans folks, we have queer folks, right? So right now in the coaching world, it's 60% white. We need to shift things and change things. And I think a big part of that is the foundation of a lot of coaching programs is white. And so the Wholehearted Coaching Certification is here to change the landscape of coaching. So you can find more there at wholeheartedcertification.com. You can find me on Instagram at the Wholehearted Coaching. That's me. I also have a podcast, which I recently put on pause. It's Wholehearted Coaching, the podcast, but Danielle did a special episode for us there, which is so powerful and amazing and wonderful. If you don't even go there to listen to me, just go to that episode. It's a recent episode. I just paused it recently. Go listen to Danielle's episode. It's so wonderful.
Thank you so much. I want to just say, from experience of going through Shirin's program, that has helped me in my coaching and in how I help people navigate marketing. I have the experience of realizing that for the work that I do, I will give a lot of strategy and I will help people determine, like, okay, you should be saying this, you should be doing this, and this is the kind of the order and all of those other things. But there is such a human personal element to the work of marketing and putting yourself out there and being exposed. There's so many things that come up. And through the program, Sharon just helped me to be able to hold so much more space and capacity, which is why, a lot of the people that end up working with me, they're just like, and I feel like they'll be on high and lots of anxiety, and they're just like, I enter into your space and I just feel like I'm much more calmed down, and I attribute that to, the work I've done with Sharon over the years, as well as like going through this certification as well, of just knowing like holding space is enough. And then also the work that I can do can help people see their wholeness. And a lot of times people saying like, oh, I'm not good enough at this, I'm not good enough at that. And helping people to say like, oh yeah, you are good enough to show up like this. And we can help and stick with the plans that you put in place because you feel that way. It's not just, no, here's a strategy and let's go. If that were the case, everybody would be doing this work and have fantastic things blowing up and taking off. But it's that human element. And so I want to thank Sharon for everything that she has done and the work that she has been doing for, taking a decolonized approach and doing business and thinking about things differently from centering the person and the individual. So if you are at all interested in life coaching or just about her role, definitely go check out her podcast. There's like over 200 episodes. So like even though she's like, oh, it's on pause now, like go through the 200 plus episodes at this point. Like you'll got some time there. But thank you, Sharon, so much for sharing your time with me, and everyone go connect with her. You will not regret that. Thank you so much, Sharon, for being on today.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you so much.
All right. All right, everyone. Well, I'll talk to you all next time. If you want more marketing that works right in your inbox, head to the show notes and sign up for the email list. You'll be the first to know how you can work with me on mastering your marketing.